Third, reproductive justice, it started around 2009 through 2010 around a group of folks who did a lot of work in policy, whether that was around reproductive health policy or progressive policy in Washington. And essentially, folks came together because there was a whole situation around funding coming to Washington state for reproductive justice funding. And it went to a white-led coalition that was not doing reproductive justice work. And this is a pattern that we often see in the reproductive justice world because reproductive justice was founded by Black women. And it was for Black women and women of color to use a bottom-up approach to addressing the access needs and systemic racism, systemic barriers and systemic racism that Black women of color experience around reproductive health. The fact that we can't have reproductive health unless we have reproductive rights. And as Black and brown folks here in this country, we know that systemic racism, systemic oppression impacts our ability to access healthcare and reproductive health. And so traditionally, white-led organizations will focus on reproductive health and reproductive rights, but reproductive justice really goes beyond that. It looks at the access and it looks at the needs around what communities and folks and their families need to either have babies, to not have babies, or parent the children that they have in safe, healthy, and sustainable environments. This work is supposed to be bottom up. It's supposed to be by and for and led by those who are directly and most impacted. A group of folks came together and said, we actually do need a reproductive justice org in Washington to bring a reproductive justice lens to policy. And so we had folks like former Representative Kirsten Harris-Talley, folks who were part of unions, and also folks who had worked in the policy world around abortion access and abortion rights. And folks came together, they created Surge Reproductive Justice. And for about 8 years, they operated as a working board and really being able to pull on the resources that they had through their day jobs and being able to navigate and bring Surge and that reproductive justice lens to policy spaces. And then for a brief time, they did have staff, but it wasn't sustainable for them to be able to do that. But during that time, folks like Maru Mora were here on staff and were able to really look at the intersection of immigration and reproductive justice. And so in 2018 is when I came to Surge, and with the vision of how can we do reproductive justice work in a way that one is going to be movement building and two is going to use community directed policy to be able to really support our community and being able to create, advocate for policies that are going to directly impact them, that we were going to do this in a way that challenge the status quo approach to policy development, where you have a small group of people who are making decisions for everyone. And those folks generally don't come from those communities.
Our executive director and one of the first employees here at Surge, Jackie, reached out and wanted someone to fulfill this policy position and basically take all those lessons learned from a lot of those Black women, femmes, and women of color who had done this before and actually embody it in an organization that was well-funded, that was a healthy place to live and work, that centered Black feminism and reproductive justice. And for me, made me and the people like me the main character in our own organizing. And so that was kind of like what attracted me to becoming the policy director here. When I came in, there was already a very active group of doulas that folks like Jackie and Jasmine Williams and Jazzy B had already been working in. They had fell into the same kind of trap as, I explained before. They start working in a way towards policy that didn't feel humanizing, that didn't feel like there was representation, and it didn't feel grounded in the same values that doulas have, which is abolition, right? And so they invited me into their campaign to take a full year and really dig into like the strategy and how people were gonna, move differently than before. They were like revolutionary in that because they could have just done the same basic, same old, but they took a year to really develop themselves as a base, to build relationships with each other. And I was a part of that work almost 6 years later from those first meetings. And we have not only developed a successful policy campaign, but the doulas have dominated leading the strategy both on the legislative side and on the implementation side to get Medicaid reimbursement for birth doulas. They have the highest reimbursement rate in the country. They are getting ready to, I would say, evolve from Serve Reproductive Justice into their own statewide doula hub. They just developed a network of hundreds of really grounded and empowered doulas that made history with their policy.
When I think about kind of this ecosystem of reproductive justice and community advocacy, I see a shift towards people and organizations being willing to count on us. That when we first came into this work, Serge and myself, we saw so much reliance from folks on other folks from outside of our community to lead us in policy work, to lead us in lobbying. And our message has always been that we can do it. We can do this. We can depend on each other. We got us, and this idea, again, of self-determination, how we're able to lead the work for ourselves and be able to speak for ourselves. And I feel like in 2018 that was hard for a lot of folks, that we've been so conditioned to think, hey, we need to use other people's tools. We need to follow their ways of advocacy. We need to rely on them to get into rooms. And what we've been able to do and demonstrate at Surge is that through the power of community, through the power of us and our authenticity, that we can do this work. We can push it through our way because their strategies are not even working for them. That most policy orgs will tell you, oh, it's going to take 3 to 5 years going to the legislature to pass something. And that's not the case for us. We've been able to pass our policy goals each year, the first year that we go to the legislature. And that's because of the process that we invest in around building community, building power, and analyzing and to try to change the status quo. And so the investment that I've been able to see from other organizations, from partners in our community, and the fact that it's not just about the outcome, but it's the process as well. And that's taken a lot of time because it can be scary to think about. We've been told that there's a certain way to do this work, and our intuition tells us to trust what other folks are telling us you have to do. I think that that's something that we've been able to really push back as much as possible. That when we first started this work, it was always people telling us you have to do this, or this is the right way to do something, even though we knew that that way is not even working for other folks. And so how do we support not only ourselves as a staff organization, but our community to see that even though there are so many folks who are going to tell you that this is the way you have to do it, we can build a better way and a better process. What that looks like is seeing more spaces that unapologetically center us, that challenge the status quo, and that when we have folks who are legislators, decision makers, that we're creating a culture in our community spaces, in our meetings, in our events, that our community knows this is for them. And everyone else gets to be a guest and to support this work and the strategy that we're doing. And so our spaces always have to be set up in a way where our community knows that it's for them, that they feel comfortable. Because something that we talk about with our anti-racist principles is that culture is the antidote to racism. And if our community does not see themselves in the culture does not reflect them, then they're not going to want to be in that space. And what we're focused on is centering our work around folks. So how do we have events where babies are welcomed? I always think back to when I first came to Surge, it was just myself. And at the time, I was actually pregnant with my daughter. And so she's grown up in this space, and our work with doulas has come through. If it wasn't for our campaign around Medicaid reimbursements for doulas, I myself would not have known what a doula was and would not have been able to have one during my pregnancy. But when I came to Surge, we started working on this, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need a doula. I'm pregnant right now. And so it's been such a blessing to have my daughter be raised in this space. But also because of that, I know what it's like to facilitate a meeting with a baby on my hip. And so when we have mothers and parents in this space, we want them to know that this is for them. So if you want me to hold your baby, first, I'm honored, But if you want me to hold your baby while you're able to be present, no worries, because I'm used to facilitating with the little one on my hip. Yeah, that is the culture, that's the environment that we're trying to build, because it has to start with us. Our community has to feel comfortable. They have to know that this space is meant for them, because so often we're told these spaces, especially in policy work, that it's not meant for Black and brown folks. As Black women, we're constantly, I feel like, looked over. We're expected to show up for everybody, but never for ourselves, and never to have time or space or opportunities for us to just focus on us, because we're expected to focus on our family, our communities, other people's communities, all these expectations of that kind of archetype of the strong Black woman, just keep piling on. And so in our spaces, we try to specifically create spaces where everyone is welcome, but we're centering Black women and Black femmes, and for them to be able to share their stories and their experiences. So we have to tell our own stories, and we always hear just so much gratitude for folks. And for myself, I'm always like, I appreciate hearing folks' gratitude. And also, I wish that wasn't, the norm, that folks felt grateful for something that should just be secondhand, second nature to how we're moving through life, that our birth stories should be celebrated. They should be lifted up. They should be centered. I know my daughter, she loves hearing her birth story. There's no way that story is ever going to be forgotten. And, when I think about that, it's beautiful, because she understands just how important that moment was, what it took to be able to bring her into this world that is constantly trying to not let us bring our babies into this world. And so I want to see more. I want to see more of us feeling celebrated, feeling acknowledged, and being able to have those spaces that center our stories. When we bring folks together and we're able to share our stories, we're able to talk about medical racism, we're able to talk about anti-Blackness in the medical system, that empowers people, because now they see that the blame is not on them, it's actually on institutions and systems that were set up in a way to oppress, exploit, and underserve us. And that's why we have the Black maternal health crisis, not because there's something wrong with our bodies, but because the system is causing it to us. What we have been working on is how many different ways we can infuse the knowledge around Black feminism and Black political consciousness, because with everything that we see happening and the attacks on our community, we have to double down on the ability to build anti-racist organizing skills in our community, that we want to see not just a few of us being able to do this work, not just the doulas who were involved in the campaign, but everyone in our community having the skills of anti-racist organizing, having the framework and analysis of Black feminism. And so we're focusing on cultural events that will do that work of educating, of politicizing our community, so that we can continue to build our base and build the folks who are being able to have the skills to do this work of anti-racist organizing. And so using culture to be able to do that. So whether that's through partnering with DJs to create events that center our culture, or the Sip and Paints, the Flicker and Time media night, that any type of way that we can use culture as a way to radicalize, politicize, and teach anti-racist organizing skills. So often when we see moments of time in history like we are at right now, that there is a reactionary response to really looking at activism and not organizing. So you'll see a lot of energy go into protests and these mass demonstrations, but then the fizzle out happens shortly after. We saw this in 2016. We're seeing it again now in 2024 and 2025. And what our focus is that while we should have had our infrastructure built in 2016 to be able to be prepared for this moment that has come back around, that did not happen. And so what can we do right now to plant the seeds of building those anti-racist organizing skills, that Black political power consciousness, so that when this comes around again, we are ready to be able to organize in our community and not respond in just a reactionary way. And so one of the kind of quotes that I always think about in moments like this, that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And so we're trying to plant the tree for what we need in the future. And that is anti-racist organizing skills, a Black political power consciousness, and a Black feminist analysis.